Hello and welcome to Board Now's Cult Rants, and on this video I will be reviewing Jessica Jones Season 3 Episode 5, and the episode is called A.K.A. I Wish. So again, there's a fair bit happening in this episode. We particularly get two plots really building up, so we get some more on the Gregory Schlesinger plot, and which of course features Eric, and we actually get a bit more on the Hogarth plot with her former college girlfriend. That sort of comes to a head and boils over, and I'll get into that in a moment. We'll start with the Gregory Schlesinger plot. So he was revealed as the sort of season big bad in the previous episode as a serial killer, but kind of a different serial killer, a bit more cerebral, a bit more, he doesn't have the powers of the previous kind of villains of the last two seasons. So very different from Kilgrave, very different to Jessica's mother, who was the big villain of last season. So again, we're sort of getting this build on him where he's a lot more cerebral, and as part of his image he's kind of got all these degrees, all these diplomas, and as I said in the last video, he's doing this as a way, partly as part of his clean cut image, because you're going to be less suspicious of someone with all that in his past, but also as a way to literally be smarter and to use that as part of his schemes, his sort of strategy in not getting caught. And we see a bit more of that in this episode. We see the fact that he kind of literally leaves no traces of himself, which is very hard to do nowadays. So he doesn't really leave, he barely leaves any traces of himself online. And also, as part of his cover, he very rarely stays in the same place very long, so he moves apartments, moves locations a fair bit. So Trish and Jessica kind of find out then that's part of his strategy. And again, there's this tension between Jessica and Trish in how to approach Schlesinger, and again, the roles are reversed from maybe how it used to be. So Jessica is more of, we've got to do this more by the book. We've got to think out our strategy more. Whereas Trish is more about, let's just go and get this guy, basically. So different ways of thinking. And they do build this profile on him, and they hatch this plan where they go into his apartment when he's not there, and they find all these awards, all these diplomas, but they also see these profile pictures Gregory has, and they figure out that those are his victims and potential victims, let's say. And so Trish kind of thinks, this is enough, we can get the police involved, or this is enough to build a profile. And they take pictures of them and they leave with them, but at the same time Jess says to Trish later on, this isn't enough, because basically we obtained these illegally, so it wouldn't hold up. And yeah, it's a bit lukewarm, the evidence, but it wouldn't hold up because of the way we obtained them. So again, we're seeing Jess starting to think a bit more about the law and what they can do legally, and that it might actually benefit them to maybe tread a fine line a bit more, because if you're gonna try and put this guy away, you sort of have to abide by the law to do it, kind of thing. So again, there's tension between Trish and Jessica over that, and Jessica's assistant Gillian is also involved and doing her bit, which is quite nice to see. So it sort of all builds, and Eric again is involved because of course the link to Schlesinger. and so Jess is sort of following Schlesinger, and at one point he sees him talking to Eric, and then we see a street worker, a hooker, who we see is some sort of link to Eric, and we see her with her pimp, and Schlesinger also is involved, and he goes over, says something to Eric, and so we only see that half of the conversation from Jessica perspective, so she can't hear what's being said. But what it basically amounts to is that Schlesinger has turned the tables on Eric. He's sort of found out that he's trying to work him, and we find out that Nigel is Eric's sister, and the other guy was her pimp, as I was saying. So basically Schlesinger is putting the heat on Eric, saying, you know, I can kill your sister if you don't play ball, if you don't give me the information of the person who put you on to me, that kind of thing. And it's funny actually, because the actress playing the hooker is actually in The Deuce. I recognise her from that, the series about the porn industry in like the 60s, 70s, from the same guy who created David Simon, who created The Wire. And it's funny because I'm pretty sure she plays a pimp in that as well. But yeah, she's another good actress, another good addition to the cast in this. So we find out it's Eric's sister, and she's got entangled up in all this business. And sort of later on, because Malcolm has decided to take a break from things because things are getting quite heavy with the whole Peter side of the plot and Hogarth, and so he's taking some downtime with Hogarth's blessing, and so he sort of starts helping Jessica out with her investigation. And so Jessica sort of asks Malcolm to watch Eric's sister to protect her, which he does. But she at one point decides, you know, I've got to work, I've got to make money, and so her pimp finds her and says, come on, it's time to go, you've got to go and make money, and she wants to do this. So obviously Malcolm tries to stop it, but then he's knocked out and she goes off anyway, and I think he recovers her before the end of the episode. But there's this sort of idea then, yeah, she still wants to make money, she still wants to turn tricks, even though she's in danger potentially, and she doesn't know much about the whole thing with Gregory at this point, so she maybe doesn't realise what danger she's in. But yeah, I think we're going to get more of that in the next episode. So what builds up and what leads to quite a tense finale or end of this episode is the fact that they basically losing my marbles. Jessica and Trish decide they have to obviously track Gregory and sort of catch him in the act, or catch him with evidence. And so they follow him along, and it turns out that he's been keeping the bodies of his victims in these special kind of gas chambers, or chambers, kind of like a sewer sort of line underneath the city, so really compressed and claustrophobic. And so they follow him there, and they sort of find out, they see that he's dumping bodies in there, and so then they have to discreetly sort of get the evidence without him finding out and removing the evidence. And so they're sort of carefully following them, and But he appears to lose Jessica at one point, and Jessica goes in to get one of the bodies. She finds a head, but then Eric has. I think it's Trish he's lost, because Trish is supposed to be keeping an eye on him while Jessica's doing the deed, let's say. And so he closes the top on of the sewer pipe, or whatever this chamber is supposed to be, and there's this really intense gas in there, and basically Jessica only has like a minute or two to live to escape. So really claustrophobic, intense scene. And then Trish, gets Gregory, attacks him, and they get into a scramble. But he basically says, you've got less than a minute or whatever it is to save Jessica. You can't do both. You can't, arrest me, apprehend me, and save her. You don't have enough time. So she makes the selfless choice, and she chooses to save Jessica. And that's kind of a turning point for them, because Jessica obviously appreciates that later, and gives her credit for making that decision. And it's interesting because Trish, kind of puts a reasonable explanation behind it. Just the fact that Jessica is, it's more handy having her alive and as part of the fight in this case than if she died, sort of thing. But of course it's Trish, doing the right thing, having a sense of morality as well. But so it's a sacrifice which is kind of logical and makes sense for the plot, because they're not gonna get him this soon in episode 5. But it's a turning point for Trish and Jess. They sort of bond over it, and they're sort of more on the same page than they kind of have been, because Jess sees that in Trish, and that is the right thing to do for humanity, for moral reasons. Sometimes you've got to say screw it to the bigger picture and just do the right thing because it's the right thing. That's what it's all about, sort of thing. So that is a turning point for them in this season, and in a way it makes them stronger and more determined to work together and to get Gregory. But it's a really, really intense, really visually good end to the episode. So shifting to the other side of the plot and Hogarth and the law firm. So she's had Malcolm on Peter and filming him and getting all this dirt which she can use against him with Skip, her ex-partner. And it all comes to a head, and Skip finds out about this. There's two things. First, then he's been cheating on her, which apparently she wasn't that bugged about, because apparently they had a bit of an open relationship, and obviously she's been seeing Hogarth casually. But the other side thing is then he apparently had been taking funds from her foundation as well, which she didn't know about, and of course isn't very happy about. And I think he tries to give a reason later on, but she's not really listening. She's irate. And it's an interesting thing later on when Peter confronts Jerry about it, Hogarth as she's otherwise known, and he says, you'll never have her, sort of thing. And she says maybe, but neither will you. And it's almost that small victory for Hogarth, the fact that she realises then what she's done could cost her any potential relationship with Skip, but at the same time she's made sure then Peter can't have her neither. So it's almost, if I can't have her, neither can you. It's sort of her way of thinking. But predictably, Skip doesn't want to see Hogarth. She's achieved what she wanted in getting Peter out of her life, but at the same time, I think she probably was hoping then it would fall into place, then she could then have a relationship with her. But even though obviously it's right that Skip finds out Hogarth went about it the wrong way and has her own motivation. So I think Skip can see through that. So yeah, she ends the relationship with Hogarth as well. But then things take a particularly dark turn because Peter films this video of him in a bath essentially, and again social media is a big part of this season and how it's used. And he essentially gives out this message about Hogarth and the firm, and painting a picture of her tactics and what she's done in this case. And the end note of this is that he's commit suicide. Essentially, it's a suicide video. You don't see the act itself, but the video ends with him, and you can see the blood in the bath, so you can tell he's committing suicide, and this is his final message to the world through social media. And later on, Hogarth's assistant, Malcolm's girlfriend, confirms then he has killed himself, and so suddenly this is all bad on the law firm. This all looks bad, and a potential murder is going to fall through, and their clients are starting to get cold feet. So yeah, it becomes about this idea of Hogarth having to try and save the image of the law firm and trying to save their clients. And we see a bit of this in the episode. And I think her name's Xena or something. That's Malcolm's girlfriend and Hogarth's assistant. So she's helping with this a bit. They're sort of calling around clients and trying to put a good spin on things and trying to promote their services. So, but yeah, things really took a dark turn with that Peter plot ending that way. Didn't really see that coming. So yeah, that's a big part of the episode. And then, as I said, we have this thing with Malcolm, and again he's sort of caught between the two. I mean, he's taking a vacation, Hogarth gives him his blessing, and yeah, he just wants to lay low because of his part in the Peter thing, and he feels bad because he obviously hears about the suicide. So I think that again maybe is putting more pressure on that side of the plot. You know, this is putting more doubts in his mind about whether this is the firm he wants to work for, and it's slowly pushing him more to the Jessica side of things. And I think that's going to be a big part of the season again, the tension between the law firm and Jessica, and they're going to be more at loggerheads. So Malcolm feels guilty about that, feels responsible, and he obviously starts helping Jessica out by the end of the episode. And again, I think there's going to be more tension with him and his girlfriend. But yeah, another solid episode, I thought. I think things are moving along nicely. Quite a nice pace to this season. And again, I'm quite enthusiastic. The ending was tense. So yeah, so far so good. That's episode 5. It's called A.K.A. I Wish. If you've seen the episode, please comment below. Like and subscribe if you're a first time viewer. And I'll be back with more soon. Goodbye.